What is up guys, Kris05 with another video here. If you want to get better at the game, learn some cool tips, get more gold, dust and legendaries, and even earn money from playing Hearthstone, subscribe to my channel and check my other videos. In this video I will give you my take on the Tempo Mage guide. I'll explain the archetype, what the Mulligan versus each class and how to play versus them, and I will even give you a cheaper version of the deck if you have dust issues. So here's my version of a Tempo Mage deck list. As you can see, I have two cards in it that I don't see many people using in their versions, and later I will explain why I think they deserve to be included. You can find the code to this deck in the description below. Right now, Tempo Mage is one of the strongest decks in the meta, and you'll need to wash your hands after most games with it, especially in your first games. You won't know what you're doing and you will still probably win. The deck capitalizes on slow and greedy decks, while it still holds its own versus mid-range decks. Now I won't lie to you, the deck is pretty weak versus aggro decks like Druid and Warlock Paladin, but there are ways to tech against them as well. The general strategy of this deck is to make big value plays in the early turns, cheating out secrets to keep your opponent guessing, so you can snowball and finish the game around turn 7 or 8. Usually it is enough to put in some chip damage in the early turns, so you can finish off your opponent with some good old face spell damage. The introduction of Net and explosive runes, the recent nerfs and the state of the meta right now push the deck to tier 1 this season. Having a reliable hand refill like Net will win you a lot of games versus slower decks, given the fact that sometimes you run out of cards as soon as turn 3 or 4. Switching out the standard potion of polymorph secret that so many Tempo Mages run with a classic polymorph really helps in the high ranks, since most people expect the potion of polymorph and almost always have a way to test it before slamming their big dude on the table. Medivh is another great personal touch I included. If you don't like him, you can switch him out with the usual second Archaeologist or Cabal Lackey for better early game. Without him, sometimes you just won't have enough damage to finish off your opponent, but having a Medivh staff in your hand and blasting a Firelands portal in your opponent's face or minion would do the trick. He is also a great way to stop your Net from overdrawing. Let's move on to the mulligans and gameplay versus each class. The better you are at guessing what type of deck your opponent is playing, the better you will be able to mulligan against them. You should have a feel of the meta around your rank and be able to take a good guess what will be up against you.
For the wilds.
Versus Druid, you should expect a slow deck, with a slim chance of it being aggro. Try mulliganing for all of your cheap minions, Cabal Lackey, Mana Worm, Archaeologist, Sorcerer's Apprentice and Tempo Mage. You should be good versus Druid, since they don't do so well against counterspell and burn damage. As long as they don't manage to stack a ton of armor against you, you should be fine. Try not to overcommit too much if you don't have enough damage though. In this matchup, Net and Medivh are great since they give you a ton of value. If it's aggro Druid on the other hand, you will be in trouble, constantly trying to control the board.
I hunt alone.
Versus Hunter, you will obviously play against a fast deck. You have to be very greedy with the mulligan here, if you want to stand a chance. Mulligan small minions like Cabal Lackey, Mana Worm and Archaeologist, Tempo Mage would be situational. A Frostbolt would be nice to have. Hunters beat Tempo Mage most of the time. If it's Spell Hunter, your exploding runes would be useless. They have a ton of spells to test out counterspell as well. Even if you polymorph their Isharge before it hits once, you will still probably lose, unless they somehow have a terrible draw. Versus Face Hunter you have a slightly better chance, but it would still be rough.
I'm ready.
Versus Mage you can expect a mirror match, or playing versus Exodia Mage. Control mages are pretty rare these days. For the mulligan, Mana Worm is a must, and your other small minions are okay too. A Frostbolt is advised so you can remove his Mana Worm if he gets it. Net is good to have in this matchup, since you will probably go toe-to-toe until turn 6. If you play versus another Tempo Mage, it is crucial to take the lead early on. The mage who drops the first secret usually wins. It is very hard to come back after one of you snowballs. Net is maybe the only way to come back. Versus Exodia and Control Mage, you'll have an easy time.
For justice!
Paladins, like Hunters, are the biggest menace for Tempo Mage. You will most probably be facing Druid or Warlock Paladin, with the slim chance of it being an Exodia Paladin. Things get tricky here. If you're first, you should mulligan for Mana Worm, Cabal Lackey, Archaeologist and Frostbolt. If you are second, however, you must include a counterspell in there, and you can substitute the Frostbolt for a Medivh's Valet. You need to be really greedy with your mulligan here. Against aggro paladins, you have to be really lucky to establish a board presence early on and keep it until you've done enough chip damage to be able to finish him off with spells and his smug face. A glyph into a board clear is essential here. Also, you will want to have a counter spell up on turn 4 so he doesn't call to arms. If you are seeing way too much aggro pallies against you, maybe it's time to take a volcanic potion in your deck. If you have the luck to play versus Exodia pally, your chances of winning go a lot higher.
By the light!
Versus Priest, you can be facing at least 3 different common versions of Priest. Spiteful Priest, Combo Dragon Priest or Big Priest. All 3 types are not that threatening to Tempo Mage, with the exclusion of maybe Combo Priest. The mulligan here is same as with Druids, but you will want to keep Alnet so you have enough steam to finish off a Big Priest. You should be able to identify what you're playing against in the first 2 to 3 turns. If you're playing against a Dragon Combo Priest, you should keep his board in check so he can't surprise you with a 12-12 on turn 3 or 4. You should be careful on turn 4 to not overextend on the board. They will almost always punish you with a Duskbreaker, clearing all of your early game minions. Even if you have a Kirin Mage and a secret on turn 3, it would be better if you just throw the secret and save the Kirin for another time. Spiteful and Big Priest are usually too slow for you and you should have no problem versus them.
Here we go.
After the nerf, only Miracle and Mill aka Kingsbane Rogue are worth noting. In both cases you would want to have Mana Worm, Arcanologist and Kirin Mage. Keeping Alnet and Frostbolt also would be good. If you're against a Miracle Rogue, the game should be pretty easy for you. You will have a lot of ways to dictate the game in your favor. It would be good to have an ice block up if your health is halfway gone, just in case. If you're against a Kingsbane Rogue, if he has a good draw, you might not stand a chance, since he will be able to lifesteal most of your damage. Frostbolt can help you stall his lifesteal, so use it wisely. Alnet is a great way to keep your tempo up, but be careful not to overdraw, since he does run 2 Cold Light Oracles and Shadow Steps. Always try to have 6 cards or less.
Elements guide me.
Versus Shaman, surprisingly, you might have some trouble. There is a new not so popular Control Shaman deck that runs 2 Healing Rains and 2 Water Speakers that heal for 36. The other option is them being a Token Shaman or a Jade Shaman, which again is not perfect for you. You should mulligan for Mana Worm, Cabal Locky, Arcanologist and maybe a Kirin Mage and a Frostbolt. Alnet would not be useless here as well. If you're against a Token Shaman, you should keep the board as clear as possible. The glyph should ideally be used for a board clear. It would be wise to take advantage of the value of Medivh's Valet. Having a counterspell on turn 6 might get you saved from an evolved Doppelgangster. Against the Control Shaman, you should squeeze as much value out of your cards as possible, otherwise it will probably be impossible for you to finish him off.
Suffer!
Versus Warlock, you will most likely be facing a Cube or Control Lock, with a chance of it being Zoo Lock. Here you should mulligan for Mana Worm, Cabal Locky, Arcanologist and maybe a Sorcerer's Apprentice. You should always keep Alnet and Polymorph here as well. Alnet will be MVP in a long game and Polymorph will have great value for sure. Most of the time you will be able to finish off cube locks early on. Try not to play an Exploding Rune around turn 4 and 5, since he will just drop a lackey and you will find yourself in some trouble. Instead, drop a counterspell if given the opportunity. If the game goes longer than expected, Alnet, Medivh, Polymorph and Pyroblast are all great lifesavers. Overall, it should be pretty easy win for you and you should be able to dictate the game at all times. Against Zoo, you will have to look for board clears from your glyph and try to control the board.
Ruktar Ogre!
There is no popular warrior deck being played right now, but if you face one, it would probably be some kind of a control-oriented deck. You can mulligan for your low-cost minions and Alnet, so you don't run out of steam. Warrior has a lot of ways to stack up armor, and cards like Alnet and Medivh will be key for you to win this matchup. Lastly, I want to give you guys a cheaper version of this deck, so you can start climbing with it on the ladder and in time upgrade the deck to its optimal state. You can actually make a pretty decent version of this deck for only a fraction of its cost, swapping out expensive epics and legendaries for some good class cards, commons and rares doesn't hurt the overall idea of the deck and gives you a pretty nice deck to start climbing with. You can find the code to this deck in the description below. Thanks for watching my guide, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button and maybe drop a like if you like. I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video.